Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Hello, everyone. JLR investigates. She likes to sit on my lap, but as soon as I get talking, she likes to get on out of there. OJ, Delphi, Richard Allen case. Titled this video, Train Wreck on the Delphi train tracks. The High Bridge Trail, folks. Let's talk day 5 yesterday complete. We're going to give you our analysis and our take on the situation, the state of Indiana versus Richard Allen. And so far, the prosecution has brought numerous witnesses to testify, but none has testified that it was Richard Allen at the scene. None. None can point to Richard Allen at the scene yet. There's still some things going on, folks. Come on in. We are covering this case extensively. Me and Magnolia Investigates, boots on the ground. We are looking at the weather in Delphi. It's kind of cold in the morning. We're kind of saying, hey, do we want to go back and wait in line and see what's going on? Possibly. But we are going out to Sarah Boone very, very soon. There's a development in the Sarah Boone case, by the way. We'll talk about that a little bit too. Okay, so as far as this case here, the prosecution, it seems like they're about halfway done. Their witnesses, I would say about halfway done. So day 5. So I would say another maybe week, and the prosecution will probably rest their case unless we get some latest developments, and you never know because the defense has been filing filings in this case. They want the Odinism, based off the, how the bodies were laid with the sticks. They want that Odinism, paganism, ritualistic defense, since, those bodies were out there and it's been testified about the conditions of the body, the theory that the prosecution claims, the defense wants to counter that. Interesting case thus far. What do you think? Still a lot of secrecy. Case is not being shown on the national media scale. We can't see it. We have to rely on people that are sacrificing their bodies by waiting in line, usually around 8 p.m. the night before. That's when the line starts. And people are in that cold, and they're all with a jacket and bundled up, cold and in chairs. When it gets into the 30s, it's cold, folks. It's very, very cold. And they wait all night. They wait like 12 hours. Then they go in and then go in there for another 9 hours. By the time they get done, I can't believe people could live off like a few hours of sleep. Because the same people are doing it over and over and over and over and over again. Interesting stuff. Let's get Magnolia in the chat to discuss Richard Allen. A train wreck. Is the case a train wreck? It's up for debate. We can't say it's automatically a train wreck thus far because the prosecution still has more witnesses and there could be some smoking guns coming soon. I would think they would have brought that already, but that's another discussion. Magnolia Investigates.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. We've been saying to the viewers, we're going to come out every day and give our analysis and the update and the latest with this case. And you're pretty on point on this. I'll let you run the show today. What's going on? Latest development, Richard Allen case, Delphi, Indiana.
So yesterday they seemed to wrap up the witnesses that the prosecution was calling that had previously, done interviews and said that they saw a certain man with different descriptions. They had varying descriptions of what the man looked like. And so I think all of those have now testified, but not a single one of them has been able to ID Richard Allen. So I wonder what the point of that was. It's interesting that the prosecution has gone out of their way to suppress so many things. Why would they still bring up unreliable witnesses? And the fourth one that they pulled up yesterday, Sarah Carbaugh, she was the one who said she saw a man muddy and bloody.
Mud and blood.
She said that she drove by and saw someone that was covered in mud and blood. But when she was cross-examined, the defense pointed out to her that she changed her stories multiple times. Apparently, in subsequent interviews, she changed her story, certain details of her story. And when she was confronted with that by the defense, she became very hostile.
Ooh, a hostile witness.
She made statements like, "I don't even want anything to do with this case. Why are we doing this again?" And just she had a real attitude with the defense attorney, because he pointed out that there were, lots of discrepancies in her description.
What were the discrepancies?
Was the case with all of them.
Which are what? What are the discrepancies?
So originally she had said, well, that's another thing. I hate to keep opening cans of worms, but that particular topic opens yet another can of worms. So apparently in her original interview, she had said muddy, that the person was muddy. And then later she said muddy and bloody. She tried to tell them, so when he pushed back on that yesterday, she was like, well, he's like, so you didn't say bloody the first time? And she was like, well, I guess not, but I'm not sure because that part of my interview is missing.
Missing? What does that mean? They're missing her interview too? On top of the other stuff that's been missing?
Yes. Part of her interview is missing. And, that set off alarm bells for the defense. He was like, wait, what?
Well, that's where I just went. This is new information that I just heard. I mean, come on, man. That's like so many people have had their interviews, documents, and exhibits and things back in the day just suddenly vanished.
Yeah, it's a pattern. It's a pattern we're seeing over and over
Botched
again.
investigation, train wreck.
Yeah, so let's see, she said she saw a guy walking down the road near the trails the day the girls went missing. She recognized the bridge guy picture on the news as the man she saw. She described him as muddy and bloody. She became combative. Defense pointed to transcripts of her first two interviews with police. Neither of them had the word bloody in it. She insisted that she said bloody, but she said the video of her interview was missing. So the defense pounced on that.
I would too. I would too. Discrepancies. Whoa.
Yeah. So Baldwin
bloodied
said,
and muddy, B and M. It's different.
Yeah. So this was Baldwin that was doing this cross, and he said to her, "You said your description was always the same, but that's not true, is it?" And she responded by saying, "I guess not." She then told the court she wanted nothing to do with this case. During recross, Baldwin asked again about inconsistencies. "We're doing this again?" she said. She was not happy. It seems like she's, I guess, you could call her a hostile witness, right? Doesn't want to be there, doesn't want anything to do with this. She's not happy that the defense is picking apart her interviews.
What's her name?
And Sarah Carbaugh, Carbaughh.
All right, I'm going to see if I can find a picture of her. Sarah Carbaugh. Is there any images of her out there, Sarah Carbaugh?
Not that I know. I mean, I haven't looked.
Dude, there's nothing on her. It's strange.
Wow. Yeah.
So Sarah's like, we got to do this again. She didn't want to do it again. Well, she's brought on as a prosecution witness, though. Prosecutor's the one that brought her on the stand, not the defense.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like, she was a little bit combative, apparently. But, the other witnesses that they brought up were equally unsuccessful. So I just don't understand what the point of parading unreliable witnesses onto the stand was. Like, what was the point of all that with the prosecution? Like, what? I don't get it.
You have I feel like the prosecution's going to say circumstantial evidence that Allen's the bridge guy. Therefore, you need witnesses to establish that there was a bridge guy.
But Richard Allen already said he was on the bridge. That's never been in question.
But he never said he was bridge guy.
Why do we need people to say, okay, yeah, I saw him, but when he already said he was there?
Well, I mean, again, I just think that did Richard Allen ever say he was bridge guy? I don't think so. Like, as far as him being, he said he was on the bridge. Yeah, he called the tip line, said I was there, or I was on the trail. But he never said he was bridge guy.
Claire in the chat reminded me of another thing on Carbaugh. So she also did not report any of her witness testimony to the police until around 3 months after the crime.
Whoa, why? Because she saw bridge guy on the news and she's like, oh, I just, I remember I saw a muddy and bloody guy walking down the street just north.
Yeah, and she also seems as though she may have also lied because she claimed that she drove by. She said something about that she had seen an Amber Alert for the girls, and that's why she went out or something. But people pointed out online that there was never an Amber Alert for this case. And she claims to have seen an Amber Alert. Well, but apparently there was not an Amber. So that's, Did
the defense call that out?
I'm not sure if they honed in on that or not. But I saw it. Multiple people noticed it. And, so either she lied or she just misremembered, because some people can say, oh, there's an Amber Alert when there's really not. It's just the news is saying these people are missing, but technically an Amber Alert's not issued yet. So it's a little bit weird. But when you add it to everything else with her, she was just completely and totally unreliable.
It's so funny seeing you at night, Magnolia, zipping through and reading everyone's take on that's been in there and everyone's assessment and everything like that, and you put it all together on top of you following the case. Sarah Carbaugh. So, like, how long was she on the prosecutor side? How long was she on the defense side? And what ended up happening? Nothing like breakthrough with her testimony. Nothing.
No. That was apparently the end of it when I think they kind of went back and forth with her though, because they're saying that there was a recross. So it sounds like they went back and forth with her, and she just lost it. She was just like, I'm over this. Get me out of here. So
maybe she got subpoena. Maybe she didn't even want to be there. Maybe she got the subpoena and she had to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Yeah, it seems like she really just didn't want to be there. So anyway, I think that concluded the parade of unreliable eyewitnesses. I just think it's interesting that they brought those people up, even though last week they admitted that none of the witnesses were able to ID him, and therefore they wanted those sketches to be taken out. So why would you take those sketches out based on unreliable witnesses and then still turn around and bring the unreliable witnesses to the stand? So that's just kind of weird to me. Maybe they painted themselves into a corner and they had to call them up because they know that if they didn't, the defense would certainly bring them up to reveal the inconsistencies and all that. So, they may have just kind of been stuck there and they just had to bring them up just to, like you said, establish that some people apparently saw Richard that day. But yeah, the issue is, even if he is Bridge Guy, we still don't have a connection of Bridge Guy and the crime scene. So they continued with their witnesses. A big part of the day yesterday was Dr. Roland Kahr, K-A-H-R. Now he's the forensic pathologist that did the autopsies. And apparently this was a very difficult section of testimony yesterday. They said that one of the male jurors kept putting his head in his hands. He didn't want to see the pictures. They were showing the pictures of the neck wounds, and he just describes the nature of their injuries, how long it would have taken them to die. He kind of went through all that, and apparently it was very grisly detail, and it was difficult for people in the courtroom. But mainly out of that testimony, I think it's clear that Libby, for whatever reason, Libby was more viciously attacked than Abby was. So Abby only had one cut to her neck, and it cut one of her jugular veins, and they're saying that it probably took about 10 minutes or so for her to bleed out. Libby, on the other hand, had, I think, a total of like 5 wounds. She had 3 large gashes on her neck.
Why more her?
If we remember, she's the one who was also found nude. So apparently Libby suffered more injuries than Abby did. So that came out yesterday. Now, another thing that's very interesting, if you remember last week, first day in court, it was stated that there were 2 knives used in this crime. One was serrated and one was smooth. And I got that. That was said in court on Friday. Barbara McDonald from Court TV reported it as well. Now it turns out they're saying that they don't know what the weapon was.
Whoa.
So yesterday, this Dr. Kaur that did the autopsies, he said he could not say for sure what type of weapon was used. But he said, initially, he said that he believed Libby's wounds were caused by a serrated knife. But yesterday in court, he said it may have been a box cutter. Now, that little detail is quite interesting because he never said that before. But guess who did mention a box cutter?
Who?
Richard Allen, in one of his confessions, allegedly. So
now they're changing it based off his confession and moving the goalpost.
Yeah, people are saying that all this time, he said he made mention of a serrated knife and different things like that. And then all of a sudden, yesterday on the stand, he was like, oh, it may have been a box cutter. And the defense pointed out to him that he had never testified to that before. Because, they're going through all the different transcripts and interviews and statements and things. And apparently he had never mentioned box cutter up until he's on the stand yesterday. But I think he may have said it once before in like a pretrial hearing, and the defense is
after the confessions. After the confessions?
Yes.
Okay.
So the defense is saying that he changed his story. He changed this detail without telling them. They didn't know that now he's saying it could have been a box cutter. So that was kind of a moment yesterday too.
Well, was he coached, by the prosecutor to say, just say it's a box cutter, you know what I mean? Because, Richard Allen allegedly confessed in these confessions that it was a box cutter when all this time everyone thought it was knives, right? But yeah, you change it. Just say it could have been a box cutter. You know what I mean? Like, okay, now box cutter. Now the prosecutor could say, see, this person said it could have been a box cutter. And then when the confessions come out on Richard Allen, you got box cutter. See, it's a box cutter. He admitted to it, and it's a box cutter.
Right. So it seems like his testimony may have been influenced by the alleged confessions that took place over a year and a half ago now.
That's dirty if that's the case here. I mean, if he hadn't said it prior, and if he just said it one time in a prior pretrial hearing after the confession, that's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. That's a problem. And I mean, how much did the defense pounce on this, on getting this guy, by saying like, yo, you said knives, that, now it's a box cutter.
Well, it's hard to know without being in the courtroom, but it's the the way that I've interpreted different people's reports is the defense attorney was quite alarmed by this and sort of made a big deal about it. So, saying that, well, he changed this, but never told us that he changed it. So they were unaware that he was going to say it was a box cutter, or it may have been a box cutter. But at the end of the day, he admitted that he doesn't know what type of weapon it was.
But he planted the seed, though. He planted the seed by saying box cutter. Because when these tapes come out, or whatever, where Rich and Allen says box cutter, they're going to be like, oh, box cutter, see?
Mm-hmm. Yep. But the other thing that he said was he doesn't know the time of death. They're not sure about the time of death. That's another thing that came out. So, a lot of people are looking at that and wondering if they could have done more to determine the time of death. So there's a big question mark. So we really have no idea when they were killed. The last time the phone was accessed was around 2:14 p.m. And then we just don't know what happened after that, because they were not found until it was about 24 hours when they were found. And it was testified that they were in rigor mortis when they were found.
What's that mean?
Around the 22-hour mark, meaning their bodies were stiff.
Ooh. That's a term I didn't know. I'd never heard of that term before, so interesting.
Well, when someone dies, the body gets stiff, then that's called rigor mortis. But rigor mortis has a process, and it's something like for 12 hours the body would be in rigor mortis, meaning stiff, and then the next 12 hours it relaxes, and then there's like a stage of rigor mortis. So the stage of rigor mortis they were in was that the bodies were stiff. So you can estimate potentially they were killed within 12 hours of being found, but that only puts us back to midnight on the 14th. So that's the point. We don't know when they actually were killed. So that was
that hurt.
testified.
You think that hurts the prosecution, right? Like you would think that you would have to say, when they die, or at least within an hour range or something, like in that sense, right? And they can't do that.
Yeah.
So does that back the defense's theory that the bodies were taken and moved and brought back? Will that help them?
Well, I think that part of the theory from the defense actually did take a blow yesterday with one of the other witnesses, who was, it was Sergeant Christopher Cecil, and he's the one who analyzed Libby's cell phone data back in 2019. So her cell phone data was analyzed numerous times. This particular sergeant was testifying to the data that he pulled in 2019 from her phone. And he said that the last movement of the phone that day was 2:32 p.m. Now, we know that the phone...
2:13.
They said that the phone...
The last video
sort of shut off. They say the phone shut off around 10:32 p.m. That's what they said. But he's saying that the phone never moved. There was no movement since 2:32. But then there was a call or text received at 10:32 p.m. Then the phone just completely went dark.
Okay, well let me time out a minute. Okay, so what we do know is her last phone video was at 2:13 of the the bridge guy far in the distance. They enhanced it, whatever. The last video she made 2:13. You're saying that the phone was last moved at 2:32?
Yeah, so the video was at 2:13. Someone tried to unlock the phone at 2:14, but was unsuccessful. then they're saying the phone then logged an elevation change of about 20 feet, but they can't say whether it was up or down. So after the video was taken, they're saying that that there was a change in elevation. So that would indicate them going either down the hill or up the hill. He couldn't say with certainty if it was up or down, but he just said that the phone logged an elevation change of about 20 feet. And then there was no movement logged on the phone after 2:32 p.m.
So that's 19 minutes later from the time that video was taken. 19 minutes later, nothing else. So
yes, and then the last call data received was at 10:32 p.m. Then the phone went dark. He thought at the time that the phone died, the battery died, but now he thinks that's no longer the case. He said he reprocessed the data this past summer and discovered that Libby's phone received 15 messages at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th. He could not offer an explanation for why there was no activity from 10:32 p.m. to 4:33 a.m. He also said that they found all of the pictures that Libby had posted to Snapchat that day on the phone, with the exception of the picture we all have seen of Abby on the bridge. For whatever reason, that photo was not found on Libby's phone. All the other ones were, but not this one. I'll send you the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay, so
if you want to show it.
Yeah, I'll show it. And Magnolia, I want to say, here's the photo itself. I want to say, Magnolia, at 2:13, their last, image, and then 2:32, their phone, it kind of stays where it's at, right? 2:32.
Yeah, they're saying there was no movement.
Okay, so 2:32, that gives you 19 minutes. Now, that's 19 minutes. You can get a pretty, 19 minutes from that bridge. 19 minutes from that bridge, you could get a significant distance. I mean, you could go almost a mile away.
Yeah.
If you just walk at 3 miles an hour. Walking through. So, elevation-wise, though, I think we established, when we were up on that bridge and somebody was telling us it was about 63 feet from the bridge, top of the bridge, down to the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
I said 100. Somebody said it was like 63 feet or something like that. But you're saying that they said the elevation only changed 20 feet?
That was his testimony, yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is at the bottom of the hill where the girls ended up being followed was definitely, more than 20 feet down or up, down.
Yeah.
Definitely more than 20 feet. Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's maybe 63 feet, 65 feet, something like that, elevation-wise.
Yeah.
So how does this make sense? Does it?
No, I mean a lot of this doesn't make sense. Why would the phone go dark from 10:32 p.m. and then suddenly spring to life at 4:33 a.m.? Now, one explanation I have for that would be that maybe the phone lost service because it's in the woods.
Depends on the carrier. We went down. We went
in
Verizon.
Because this was back in 2017, so we don't really know the cell coverage at the time. But that could be one explanation. Because it sounds as if the phone was truly off from 10:32 p.m. and then it came back on at 4:33 a.m.
But because
there was an influx of messages.
When it came back on, did it stay on all the way up to it was found, or did it go back off again?
I think that they turned the phone off. No, they accessed the phone at some point in the afternoon on the 15th. But there's a lot more with the phone. There's issues with this phone. I'll get to that in a second. But the thing where I left off was this picture. So we know that Libby had been posting on Snapchat that day. She posted apparently a few different pictures on Snapchat. All of those pictures were found on her phone except this one.
Except this one. What does that mean? Why? Why this one? Why was this one gone?
The investigator could not explain why. And the defense asked if it was possible that someone else could have posted it from another device. And the investigator said, yes, that's possible. Maybe someone had access to her account. I don't know. They're trying to figure out how to explain this. Let's see. So the defense also asked this investigator if he sent the extracted data to the FBI when they requested it, and he said he did not respond. So that's kind of weird. Now the other issue with the phone,
FBI cast.
Yeah, the other issue with the phone is evidently on Libby's phone there was a picture of her funeral.
What does that mean?
That means the phone was evidently given back to the family at some point pretty early on, and someone used her phone to take a picture at her funeral, which is wild that the phone would have left police custody like that. People can't believe it. They're like, what? How is that possible? So there's issues.
I can understand
with
giving victims
on the phone.
I can understand giving victims' families like pieces of jewelry or clothing that belong to a victim, but the phone that would be used as evidence in a case,
yeah,
going back to the family and then using that data to, testify with,
yeah.
it's kind of strange to me. Let me ask you something. Is it possible the phone died and then can the sunlight or the moonlight or anything like that give it some boost and recharge it?
Well, some people think that the phone could have possibly gotten wet, and that's what caused it to die. And then it dried out, and it came back on. That's another possibility.
That's like me chasing hurricanes, Magnolia. When I get this camera and I go in the storm and everything and I get soaking wet, the microphone dies. And it takes about an hour or two, and then the microphone comes back to life.
Yeah. Yeah, so, right, someone said, why was that the only picture not on the phone, and how did they get it? So, the picture came from the Snapchat account. So...
Of who? Of which victim?
What's that?
Which victim Snapchat?
Libby's Snapchat. So Abby did not have a phone. So only Libby had a phone. But her and Abby used the phone together. So different social media accounts in the phone, there were logins for both Libby and Abby. So they apparently shared the phone. And the Snapchat pictures are...
Okay, why does this say 7 hours ago?
That's whoever took that screenshot. They took the screenshot 7 hours after it was posted.
Okay. Interesting. Now go ahead, Magnolia. I saw that 7 hours and I was just like, huh? Does that mean like it was obtained 7 hours prior, or is that somebody else taking a screenshot of it?
Someone took a screenshot of the picture that was posted, and at the time of the screenshot, it was 7 hours later.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So yeah. So talk. Tell me some more here. What else?
Well, it's just that the Abby did not have a phone. So I think a lot of people may not have known that, but Abby did not have a phone. The only phone was Libby's. They shared the phone. There were logins for both girls on the phone. So the speculation is that maybe someone else had access to that Snapchat account on a different device, and because there was also, I think, an iPad in question. So this was an iPhone 6 that she had, and there was also an iPad. So the account could be accessed from the iPad as well. So that's just one speculation that maybe someone else was logged into the Snapchat and posted it on a different device. But the bottom line is we just don't know. That there's no explanation for that. So there you go.
AI overview. If your iPhone gets wet, you can try these steps. Turn it off, remove components, pat dry, air dry. Wait, leave your phone to air dry for at least 30 minutes, preferably 12 to 48 hours. I mean, I'm just going with the theory that maybe their phone got wet and, dried out.
Or the phone was completely off or in airplane mode, and they were moved and killed elsewhere and brought back, like the defense is saying.
Oh, man, that just seems so far-fetched. Taken where? Taken where? And why bring back? Why would you bring back someone? I mean, taking someone from the crime scene, I would believe it if their bodies were found somewhere else, at another location, dumped. People kidnapped and then their bodies. I mean, there's been kids kidnapped all over the place and then dumped on the bottom of the road or somewhere else, but taken back basically to near the crime scene of where they were taken, in an area that is going to be filled with police, filled with law enforcement, volunteer searching. Makes no sense. Police were all in that area.
Yeah. Someone pointed out, Julie Tree in the chat pointed out, Kelsey German had all of Libby's passwords. So Kelsey was the sister that took them to the bridge that day. So, yeah.
But Magnolia, I personally think, I can understand reasonable doubt. Richard Allen's maybe not bridge guy, maybe he is, whatever like that. But even if it is, it's really, that doesn't prove that he's the one that took them down, whatever. To down the hill, across, the river, around the corner, whatever. But I don't understand why the defense would say, I mean, I can say all that, but why would they even go like an extra reach and say their bodies were moved from the scene and then dumped later on, over 12 hours later, dumped to another location? Yeah. Like, I think that might...
That's their theory, but, one thing that this investigator did say, he says that the phone never moved from the location after the elevation change. The phone never moved. But if the phone's completely off, you wouldn't know if it moved or not. So I feel like you can't really, it's just something I feel like you can't really prove. So I don't know. I don't know what the defense has beyond that to think that the bodies were moved. I think one factor is the fact that there was a lot of searching done around those woods on the 13th, but they weren't found and no one saw anything until the next day. And so I think that's part of how they're building that theory. But yeah, it is a pretty bold thing to claim. It's a pretty bold claim. So it'll be interesting once it's their turn to present if, what makes them think that.
Didn't they set roadblocks and things up all over the place?
Oh, I'm sure they did.
So, I mean, bringing bodies back to an area that it has probably hundreds and hundreds of law enforcement doesn't make sense to me.
Well, another thing too,
unless it's on Logan's property. I mean, probably, inside Logan's barn, shed, house somewhere, and Logan, puts them back out and goes down the hill away from his house.
But it has been testified regarding the crime scene. It has been testified that the ground was saturated with blood. So that tends to go to the prosecution's theory that they were killed right there. So there was a lot of blood. So we'll have to see what the defense comes up with as far as that theory. I don't know. There's just a lot of questions that are hard to explain, but.
Well, I mean, I guess it's just an add-on of everything else, and it's just a pile-on, and it just creates a cloud of confusion and everything, and then maybe it just in the mind of one or two jurors, or maybe even half the jurors, or maybe all the jurors. They're like, well, this Odinism. Now you got the bodies. They can't say where the bodies were and why didn't they find them prior. It's just a combination of things. No witnesses said Richard Allen, and just raises a bunch of reasonable doubt. It's just another. It's another arsenal that they could use to paint a picture of uncertainty.
Yeah.
I just don't buy the bodies being moved to another location and brought back there when the police was full of law enforcement. Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that the medical examiner testified to, he said that there were no defensive wounds whatsoever. So the girls evidently did not fight back.
Why?
And there was also no evidence of sexual assault either.
Why wouldn't they fight back, though? Why not scream? Why not scratch? Why not kick? Why not, try to resist in any way? Were they drugged? Mm-hmm. Was there any drugs in their system?
We don't know that. I don't think that was addressed yet. Someone had posted a screenshot from an article back from the time of the murders where the investigators said that they had done a toxicology, but I don't think we've ever heard anything back on that.
Or did the girls?
It doesn't sound like it was brought up yesterday either. I haven't seen any of all the different reporters and people that I've read. I haven't noticed where that was even brought up, which is weird.
Or did the girls know the killer?
Yes. So that's another theory people have, that they could have known the person that was taking them down the hill or whatever.
I mean, I just, unless they were just like, ambushed from behind or something like that, like without them. I mean, they can't say for sure what device was used, knife or box cutter, to kill him. But I mean, did the person do it from behind? They didn't even have a chance to know it was coming while they're being marched through the woods or something.
Right. Yeah. So that's just another question that has come up. Why would there not be defensive wounds on at least one of them?
Yeah, one of them, because usually one sees the one that's happening, the other one's gonna just fight or flight.
Right, and going off the Moscow case, we had the 4 that were stabbed, and at least 2 of them had defensive wounds. We know Xana,
and that was nighttime,
and I believe Kaylee as well. So it's like you said, fight or flight. Some people might just freeze up and do nothing, but someone else might fight back viciously like Xana did. Xana tried to grab the knife from him.
You think if someone's in front of you with a knife and is about to stick it in you, you're not going to do, you're just going to freeze and let you take it?
I don't know.
I mean, but I can understand them being children, and you got this, I'm assuming the killer was a man, a boogeyman in front of you, an older man in front of you. One of the witnesses says it was a younger guy. I don't know. I mean, just, somebody, there. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're not in their shoes. None of us were there.
Right. Yeah, Renee, so Ron Logan owned 40 acres right there near the trail, and that's where they were found. Ron Logan
40 acres?
In 2022, Ron Logan died.
40 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Ron Logan. So, yeah, like, maybe the defense, when it's their turn, might try to say that, it was Logan. I mean, I think they're going to do those 3 other unusual suspects that you've mentioned, right? I mean, they pretty much said it was them. I mean, will they try to say maybe they were on Logan's property? Since they were found on Logan's property, maybe they were in Logan's house or somewhere on his property somewhere and taken back out in the night when no one was around.
Well,
for them to be found in the light.
Another thing that I wanted to mention, one of the witnesses, I think it was Sarah Carbaugh. One of the witnesses that the prosecution brought up mentioned seeing a group of people near the Mears entrance. The Mears entrance is referring to the property owner, last name Mears. One of the witnesses said that they saw a group of people, including a girl with a pink shirt.
Was the Mears entrance where the girls got dropped off, right across the street there?
Yeah, so now people are like, well, wait a minute. Who are all these people? Like, now there's like a whole new batch of people that we're seeing. Like, who are they? You know, so everyone's like, what?
It just adds to the unseasonably warm day where a bunch of people were out there. And now it seems like there's more people out there that are being uncovered.
Right.
Over 10 people now. Or maybe even 20, up to 20 people around that area at the time.
I know. So it's like, initially, you know, it kind of, the narrative seemed to be that these girls were out there. It was more or less isolated. They saw a suspicious man on the bridge and they took a video of him. And now it turns out none of that is true. Like, none of it's true.
I mean, they took a video. He just was in the video way in the background.
Well, the video that they put out all these years was fake. That was not the real video.
Oh.
It never was. The video was not of Richard Allen. It was a video that they were taking, and you can't even see Richard Allen until they enhance it and blow it up so much. That's how come that picture that they put out and the little clip is so grainy, because it was like 1 or 2 frames from the video that they isolated, chopped down, cut it down. They changed everything about it. So it's a doctored video that they put out to the public for all these years. That's not the real video. So now it turns out they may not have even been taking a video of this man. 'Cause they acted as if the video, the primary subject of the video was the man on the bridge, but that's just not the case. Now we know that's not the case. So the video was just completely doctored.
Well, you know, in the federal...
And it does not give an accurate representation of what happened. It also, now we know that there were tons of people on the trail that day. There were at least 4 witnesses that testified for the prosecution. There were more people who saw Richard Allen. There was a group of 3 women who said that they saw Richard Allen. Now we're hearing there's this whole other group of people that was at that entrance.
Mears.
So all these things are now coming out that completely changed the narrative that we've all thought we understood.
I was under the assumption that you know, the girls pulled out their phone just to, you know, film this guy approaching them or ordering him down the hill, you know, and wanted to get that image out there. You know,
that's the perception.
That's what was being put out there.
That's the narrative that has been out there this entire time, and it turns out that narrative is probably not even close to the truth.
So Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, it's Rule 901, and that's the authenticity of videos submitted as evidence. And it, you know, altered, doctored, the authenticity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why didn't Richard Allen's defense even challenge this video, like, you know, being omitted by it being altered or digitally enhanced? Or do they want that on the record to show that it's, you know, the situation? Like, put it out there, not challenge it, but get it out there so then when it's their turn to talk, they can kind of hone in on that.
Well, yeah, Junie said, where's the full video? Well, we'll probably never see it. It's one of the things that we're not able to see. It was shown in court, and people in court mentioned that when they watched the video, they were shown the actual original video. And when they saw that video, they had no idea that it was the same video we've seen all these years. They had no idea it was the same video until they were told specifically by the prosecution and the expert who actually did the analysis or the enhancements. They didn't know it was the same video. That's how different the original video is to the one that we've been watching all this time. They didn't even know it was the same video.
You put a tweet out, Magnolia. I'm going to go to your tweet. You put up Bradley Holder.
Yeah, I stirred up a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, Magnolia stirred up some trouble yesterday, but I want to know about Bridge Guy, and I want to know about Mr. Holder's hat.
Yeah.
I mean, Magnolia put this tweet out. And what's interesting is, right here, this is Brad Holder, and this is Bridge Guy. But look at the hats. I mean, look at the hats. This is Mr. Holder, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like, yo, Holder got the same hat, and honestly, it does look like Holder. I mean, it also looks like Allen to me. It looks like it could either be either or.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
well, I wanted to put that out just because, this case, we've been following it for a couple of years. I didn't start following this case until Richard Allen was arrested. And when you and I met and we started talking about the case, I really, before that point, did not follow this case that closely. But since that time, for the last 2 years or so, I've read a lot. I've looked at a lot of things. I mentioned yesterday when the Franks motion was dropped last September 2023, I downloaded it immediately before Fran Gull, sealed it. And I read the whole thing. So a lot of the stuff coming out in court now is absolutely no surprise to me because that Franks motion was incredibly detailed regarding so many different things. But the issue is, if you haven't been following this case closely, there's a lot of stuff that you have never heard, you've never been told, because so much has been suppressed. So here we are now going through the trial, and there's tons and tons and tons of people out there who have never even heard the name Brad Holder. And people say all the time, who's Brad Holder? So I said, well, this is Brad Holder. He is the father of Abby's boyfriend, Logan Holder. He is an Odinist. But the defense is not allowed to talk about that. They also had interviews with Brad Holder and his son Logan after the murders, and those interviews are inexplicably missing now.
That's why.
The other thing people don't know, it's a big, big thing people don't know, that this case, for years, up until 2021, there were 3 detectives on this case. Todd Click, Greg Ferenczi, and there was a third one, I forget his name. They were investigating Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, and Elvis Fields as the suspects. They were investigating the Odinist theory all those years, up until July 2021, when Greg Ferenczi, one of the lead detectives from the FBI task force, was ambushed and murdered. In July 2021, the detective was murdered. That murder effectively ended their investigation. Todd Click was the other investigator. He went on to retire from the police department. He went into CPS work, I guess. But that murder of that detective is really the only reason that the investigation into Brad Holder and his crew was dropped. Well, that was what happened. And a lot of people don't know that because it's been suppressed.
Well, that's why we're showing Brad Holder. It's not like we're just showing, hey, an innocent man here. He probably is innocent. I want to
Yeah.
think he's innocent. But for liability purposes, we're not saying that Brad Holder is the killer. We're saying that Magnolia's saying that he was investigated. I don't know what got them to investigate him. And that hat and that photo in a picture does look like Bridge Guy to me.
He absolutely
doesn't mean he did it.
Suspect. He was absolutely a suspect. He was named as a suspect. He was understood to be a suspect by the FBI. So this idea that all of this is a conspiracy theory is just a complete and total lie.
And those notes are all magically gone, correct?
Yeah, most of that evidence is missing. So one thing that we covered about 6 months ago, we covered the testimony of Todd Click, who was one of those original detectives. Now, he's saying that over the years, after Greg Ferenczi was murdered, I think that he tried to continue the investigation, but he got constant pushback, and eventually it kind of just got dropped. And he testified, though, for the defense last year, and he kind of went through the investigation that they had done, and I transcribed that testimony because I could tell back then that his testimony was going to be really key for the defense, and he is on the witness list for the defense. So he testified about that investigation into Brad Holder and all these things that happened, and he testified that he received a lot of pushback when he tried to submit his reports to Tony Liggett and Nick McClelland. They were just ignored. And so finally one day he took his records and his evidence about the Odinist investigation. He took it to the police station in person to meet with them. And he said the understanding was he was going to go meet with them and present this evidence. And I think when he got there, it didn't go the way he thought. It seemed as if they were shrugging him off once again. And then as he was leaving the police station, guess who was sitting in the lobby?
Who was sitting there? Dun, dun, dun.
Brad Holder.
Imagine that.
What was he doing there? What is that? I mean, what is going on? So he testified to all that. We transcribed it. I can get the link and post it in the chat. So we transcribed that interview or that testimony from Todd Click. I used like an AI voiceover because all we had was a transcript. So I took the transcript, put it to an AI voice, and we played it on our channel about 6 months ago. So I can repost that if people didn't see it. But it just gives you a lot of insight into how this investigation was going originally. And originally, there were specific suspects. One of them, Elvis Fields, actually admitted to his sister that he was on the bridge that day when the girls got killed, and he spit on one of them after they were killed. The defense has said in their Frank's motion that Elvis Fields, they describe him as sort of like mentally challenged, and they wondered in the Frank's motion if, he was just one of Brad Holder's minions or whatever. Now, there's another thing about Brad Holder that I'll address really quick.
Well,
one thing people constantly say about Brad Holder, and I got several replies on my tweet saying
Freemasons.
They're like, no. People say, but Brad Holder had an airtight alibi, and he didn't have anything to do with this. That's what people keep parroting. They keep saying that. But that's not actually true. And if you read the Frank's motion, you will learn that Brad Holder's alibi was never fully investigated. He said he was at work that day. He said he clocked out at 2:45 p.m. But as it turns out, the investigators really didn't do anything to verify that. They didn't speak to any of his coworkers about it.
Why?
It seems like they didn't even review video footage to see if his car was leaving and coming and going. So they really never investigated his alibi that that strongly. So that's how come he remained a suspect for so many years, because the alibi was not rock solid. But somewhere along the way, the word was put out, the narrative was put out that Brad Holder had an airtight alibi. And so now certain people, if you say Brad Holder, they say, oh, well, he had an alibi. But that's just not the case. And the Franks motion goes into detail about that particular topic.
Let me share this tweet. I showed the pictures, but I didn't share your actual tweet of what you said, because people also respond about this Mason. A lot of people keep asking, who is Brad Holder? Well, he's the father of Abby's boyfriend, Logan Holder. He's also a self-proclaimed Odinist, but the defense is not allowed to talk about any of this. Brad and Logan were interviewed early on, but just forget about that because those interviews are missing. And that's apparently none of our business. Anyway, this is him, bridge guy on the right, for your convenience. And you show picture of Holder. Okay, here's Holder. He posts this on his Facebook page, I guess. And then here's bridge guy. Someone responds to you with this interesting stuff, right? And says, Brad is a Masonic brother to prosecutor Nick McClelland. And it's showing here about a month after the murders happened, right? March 18th, 2017. Congratulations to Levi Holder receiving the sublime degree of Master Mason, son of senior steward Brad Holder. And then it says, congratulations, the same lodge, the Tippin Lodge 33, free and accepted Masons, Logansport, Indiana, is Nick McClelland. Congratulations to brother Nick McClelland. People are saying this is Nick McClelland in 2017. The same Freemason lodge that Levi Holder goes to? And also Brad Holder? Is this true?
Yeah.
So a suspect in the Richard Allen case, in the Richard Allen case, one of the first suspects that authorities were honing in on at the time, Brad Holder, is a member of this Tipton Lodge 33 that Nick McClelland happens to be also a member of, or was?
Yeah. Right. And why was Brad Holder hanging out at the police department when Todd Click was coming to have a meeting about him?
But this is and again, it could be all nothing of nothing, you know? It's just like, you know, when you have a small community, and the community there, Carl County, got 20,000 people. It's not many people who live in Delphi, you know? Everyone might attend the same church or school. I mean, it doesn't mean anything per se, but it is interesting to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, you know, it's just a lot, it brings up a lot of questions, you know, about this original investigation, why it wasn't taken seriously, why it was swept under the rug. And I think the biggest issue, you don't have to believe the Odinist theory, and I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people think it's nonsense, it's ridiculous, which is fine. I mean, people can think what they want to think about it. But at the end of the day, I feel that Richard Allen should at least be able to present this as a defense.
It's exculpatory in a sense, you know?
Type of, you know, I feel like if you're a defendant and this is a really serious crime here, you're accused of murdering two young girls, you should be able to present a defense. It doesn't matter what it is, in my opinion. I mean, if he wants to say killer clowns from outer space came down and did this, why shouldn't he be able to say that? You know, you have a right to defend yourself. And as it stands, the court, Fran Gull, has removed every possible avenue for him to present any defense at all. They also suffered another blow yesterday because one of the dubious aspects of this investigation is the bullet. The bullet that doesn't seem to have a full chain of custody. It was an unspent cartridge, meaning it only had tool markings on it. It did not have, it was never fired, so it wasn't like they could use typical ballistics testings for that. So the defense had an expert witness that they were planning to call. Last name is Tobin. And, you know, he was going to explain about the unspent bullet, the tool markings, and how the science is flawed with that type of analysis. And Fran Gull issued a ruling yesterday that that person is not going to be allowed to testify.
Imagine that. Another ruling against the defense.
Right.
Why though?
Yeah.
Why? What was her grounds? Do you have that motion? Do you have, or do you? Was it a motion? What is it? A document that she denied, or she just verbally just said no?
She essentially claims that his testimony doesn't speak directly to the case or something along those lines. That was her reasoning. So that's it. She said he can't testify.
So the bullet, Richard Allen, 217 phone missing. Was his phone missing, Richard Allen, 217?
Yeah. So one of the other things that they testified to in court yesterday, they said that
Excuse me. Allergies.
They seized 23 devices from Richard Allen when they did that search warrant. Indiana State Police, and they said that they could not find anything on the devices that connected Richard Allen to Abby, Libby, or their murders. However,
Dun, dun, dun.
the phone he had in 2017 was not among the devices. So they did not retrieve his phone from 2017, from the time of the murders.
Does that mean Richard Allen just got rid of it? Chucked it?
That's the speculation.
But if that's the case, then how's the defense going to prove that he was not at the scene at 2:15? They're not going to be able to do it off of digital evidence, are they? Like his phone? They're going to have to do it some other type of method. They're insisting he wasn't there at 2:15. He was gone, right?
Yeah, and I'm wondering that too, what they're going to present to prove that. And I'm wondering if it might be like a photo of his vehicle leaving the area or something like that. But yeah, they're saying that among the devices that they seized 2 years ago in 2022, the 2017 phone was not one of them.
Magnolia or anyone in the chat. I mean, I remember I had a Samsung Galaxy, I guess, S18, I guess each year, S21, S22, 23, 20. I mean, do you still have a cell phone from years ago, your old cell phone? I mean, a lot of these carriers require you to surrender your phone to get a new phone if you want to get a phone. Like, who has old phones?
I mean, I do, but I'm weird. So I have a box of old phones.
Well, I'm saying, like, most carriers, to get that phone discount or the $800 off or whatever like that, and they want you to surrender a phone to get a phone.
Yeah.
So did he just not have a phone in 217? Maybe he didn't have one. Did he have one?
No, he must have had a phone, I guess. But our friend Cheryl McCollum, she actually pointed out that was really strange, that he wouldn't have his phone. She said, let me pull it up.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. Thank you for the support.
She said, how do you have 23 devices that include pagers and flip phones, but not the phone from the day you were at a murder scene? So Cheryl is questioning that as well. So there's a list of different devices and evidence that they got.
What do they got?
She's just noting, I just sent you the evidence list. So she's just noting that among the items they retrieved were devices as old as pagers and flip phones, and yet not the 2017 phone.
So he has a Samsung.
So there's a Samsung.
He had an LG singular wireless. He used a singular wireless.
Let's see, 3 Motorola's an LG flip phone, 2 pagers, 1 black, 1 blue, Verizon smartphone. So there were a variety of devices.
Oh, so he got Verizon. He got Verizon. If he has a Verizon smartphone, then he probably had a Verizon service.
Yeah. Now, one thing we know, though...
He got all types of models here. Motorola.
Right. So
Verizon, Samsung.
Cheryl is pointing out that he has all these other devices, some which are really outdated devices, and yet he didn't have the 2017 phone. So that is a question mark on that. I would say that goes
maybe the 17
phone for the prosecution.
What is there a specific, maybe in 17 maybe he did one of those things like I said, in 17 get a new phone and change, give the 17 phone up for another phone. The offers and deals of your service provider.
It's also hard to believe that he would voluntarily, the same day they went missing, that he would voluntarily go in there and tell them he was at the bridge and what he was wearing and everything else, and then turn around and get rid of the phone. That doesn't make any sense.
Or even go in and destroy your phone before you contact them and say, hey, I was there.
Yeah. Or
how did he contact them to say he was there? Did he send it via email or a phone, a tip line? Did he call on that phone?
He contacted the tip line initially, and they processed it through as a tip. They marked it as actionable.
Was that a call to the tip line or an email to the tip line?
I don't know if it was a call or an email, but either way, he reached out to the tip line on the first day, and then it was processed through and marked as an actionable lead. So they ended up interviewing him a couple of days later.
But think about this, folks. Would you voluntarily call up a law enforcement and say, yeah, I was in the area? Knowing if you do that, you're going to subject yourself to them saying, hey, we want to see your phone.
Yeah.
We want to look at your phone. We want to search your phone to corroborate what you have to say. If you were a suspect, that's kind of like risking things here, if he's the guy, he contacts the tip line to say that he is he was there at the scene on the trail that day, knowing that they'd probably warrant some stuff, possibly. Maybe he wasn't thinking, just like the crime he committed, if he committed it, wasn't thinking.
Well, and they also
properly.
Pointed out, it's also been pointed out that, why would you self-report? And then not only that, why would he took no steps over the years to get rid of the clothes. He took no steps to change his appearance. He just continued to live his life. So it's kind of hard when you look at that behavior of self-reporting and then not getting rid of all these things over the years. That, to me, that puts a lot of weight on him trying to come forward and say, well, I was there. So it's
maybe he was using Kathy's phone. Did Kathy have a phone?
It's harder to believe that he specifically would get rid of the phone, but we're talking now, this has been almost 8 years too. So no. So the other thing I was going to say though, one thing we've learned from the Moscow case, you don't actually need the phone to know where that phone was.
Okay, Magnolia. People are saying, well, why is that 2017 phone missing? Well, then, why did he keep the guns that matched the bullet?
Allegedly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you get rid of the phone, but you keep the same gun where a bullet, did he, what's up with that? You would think he would have got rid of the guns too, right?
Yeah, and I think that just overall, his behavior over the years it doesn't seem suspicious or like he was doing anything to hide something. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say where that phone is, what happened to that phone. Maybe that'll come out. Maybe the defense has some explanation for that. I don't know.
Austin says he didn't know they found that bullet though, and that's a great point. Like, he probably didn't know if that's his bullet. I mean, he probably didn't expect his bullet to be a bullet to come out of the chamber being found by a body. He just didn't know. Like, that's just a mishap on his part, or he just didn't realize that. So there'd been no reason to get rid of a gun like a phone.
Yeah, yeah. So
what about clothing and everything like that? Did they, did they ever retrieve similar situated type of clothing? That
I think that they did. I think he did still have the jacket. I don't know about.
Dude, you're all over the news, and bridge guys all over the news, and you're gonna keep the same jacket if it's the same jacket?
Right. Yeah. So it was like a blue jacket, I guess. That he was wearing. So, yeah, he really didn't do it. Yeah, buddy, that's kind of what people have pointed out, that he really didn't do anything to change his normal habits. You know, he just kept going about his life.
And stayed in the community.
And even
worked down the street from the sheriff's office that's investigating the case within eyesight.
He was even photographed in front of one of the sketches one time.
Yeah, in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, he's just there, and I'll be honest, I think he looks like Bridge Guy, but I also think Holder looks like Bridge Guy. I don't think Ron Logan looks like Bridge Guy. I don't think Keegan Kline looks like Bridge Guy, but I think Allen looks like Bridge Guy. I also think Holder looks like Bridge Guy.
Yeah, it's interesting how similar they look, right? It's almost like they wanted to find someone who matched Brad Holder as close as possible. Because they really do resemble each other. Now, I don't know how tall Brad Holder is. Some people have asked that question. I don't know how tall he is. I just know that all these eyewitnesses testified that the Bridge Guy was tall, and Richard Allen is most certainly not tall.
Yeah, I mean, he's short, 5'4".
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, so, there's just a lot of questions, and, we could go on all day about all that, but, yeah, what else? Let's see, what else happened in court?
Okay, so what about, so you don't think the phone records of the victims, it hurts Allen in any way about their phone being there and in the area, or anything to do with their phones that was revealed in court could hurt him?
With her phone, no. No, I know you said that someone said that it wasn't good for him, but that doesn't even make sense to me. The data from her phone essentially boiled down to 2:05 p.m. The phone pinged near Monon High Bridge. 2:13 p.m. the Bridge Guy video. 2:32 the phone stops moving. Or starts moving and then stops again. And then at 10:32 p.m., the phone powered down. At 4:30 a.m., the phone woke up and received a barrage of text messages from her grandmother and different people who were looking for them. They just said that was sort of the timeline that was broken down for the phone. I think if people are saying that it's not good for the defense, what they may be referring to was the testimony that the ISP investigator did not believe that the phone ever moved once it stopped moving at 2:30 p.m. So that would go against what the defense is trying to say as far as them being moved and taken back to the crime scene.
What was the time where they were reported missing? At what time, at what point? 4-ish, 5? Like, they didn't return? Like, what time? Does anyone know in the chat?
Yeah, it was pretty quickly, because the father, Derek German, went to pick them up after about an hour later and couldn't find them. So it was pretty quick.
Well, I'm just saying because, in order to get the law enforcement out there to truly mobilize and look, by the time that happens, I would assume it was dark. Like, it's daylight savings time still, right? And what does it get in February? It gets dark 6 p.m.?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, you're not going to do a thorough assessment search considering that, look at the time. From the time 2:13 to 2:32, that's 20 minutes. I mean, they're probably, the bodies were found like maybe half mile from the bridge. quarter mile, something like that. But I mean, going through those woods side, I think the focus is probably like Libby, Abby, going down that trail all the way to the main road there, the bigger bridge, and all along there, but not really entrenched into the woods like that.
Mhm.
And especially not at night. And at night, it'd be even harder to do because it'd be dangerous because onto the south of the hill there, it goes down the hill, down into the creek like a steep, steep, steep hill. So I don't think they were looking for them like deep in the woods like that and didn't have enough time that first day. Then when light comes around, then you find them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So it would have been dark pretty soon after Derek realized that they were missing. But yeah, probably anywhere between 5 and 6 p.m. it would have been getting dark, and so that would have made it difficult that first night. Yeah, so let me see if there's any other info. I think we went through most of the witnesses from yesterday.
One reporter, Kyla Russell, says that he's been reading the Bible. The Bible.
Yes.
Richard Allen sat in his seat this morning before the jury entered and read his small Bible. I've seen it on the defense table several days, but today was the first time I've seen him reading it.
Yeah.
Before the jury entered, which is interesting. Do you think he's actually praying and repenting, or do you think he's praying for a miracle? Do you think he just is putting on a show to make it look like he's religious?
I saw someone said that it could just be a comfort thing for him because being that he's used to being locked up and solitary and things like that, his Bible may just be like a comfort thing for him.
Or praying for a miracle?
Yeah, I don't know. So, what else happened yesterday? I think we kind of went over most of the stuff from yesterday. Let's see.
We're just adding, we want to keep everyone updated in our take and assessment. Magnolia's definitely on this as far as like putting all the pieces together and everything like that based off trial and what was presented before trial.
Well, it's really difficult. It's a lot of work. It pretty much, it's almost like a full-time job to go through and understand what happened in the trial because, like we said, there's only 12 media passes, and then there's, some other members of the public who've been getting in and they're posting updates. So, I pretty much read updates from everyone in the courtroom throughout the day. And then at the end of the night, a lot of people do these long threads. But the thing is, you have to read all of them to be able to understand what actually happened because everyone has
a little different take.
Their own perspective, I might sit in court and think, oh, wow, this thing about witnessing multiple people at the Mears entrance, that's important, and I'm going to make sure that I put that in my notes. And someone else might not think it's a big deal and not include it in their notes. So you have to really read everyone's reports from the courtroom to be able to put everything together to understand what actually went on. Because the trial is in complete darkness. So, it's a lot of work for me, and I just really feel for the reporters every day that are having to go in there. I completely sympathize with them. Sometimes they're having to stay overnight just to get a seat if they don't get picked in the lottery, and they're sitting in court all day taking handwritten notes. They have to come out during the breaks, update their local stations or whatever station they work for, and then go back in and just keep doing it all day long. And then at the end of the day, they have to put everything together into their reports. It's a lot of work. It's extremely exhausting. And I feel for them and appreciate the work they're putting into it. They're getting some hate on Twitter because some people think that their reporting is insufficient or their notes aren't adequate or whatever. but I think they're doing the best they can, and there's several journalists that are really working hard to get this information out.
There's a reporter, Angela Ganote.
Angela is very good. Max Lewis is very good. Bob Siegel has been posting updates. Andrea Burkhart seems to do lives every night to update people. Bob Mata is doing a great job. There's a lot of people that are attending every day.
I think there's another one, Lawyer Lee. Lawyer Lee.
They're trying to get it out. Lawyer Lee. She's the one who reported that detail about the funeral picture being on Libby's phone.
Yeah, so each one can bring something to the table, and you collectively, get everyone's assessment, and then you put the pieces together, and some might leave, somebody might add a little bit of something else, because there's always so much, and you have to start writing that down quickly. Like, you literally have a pen and paper, and you got to start, and the legacy media gets access to these records that the public does not. But you just take everyone's take, and and that's what you've been doing, kind of like depoting and putting it all together, like just mashing everyone's take together.
Yeah, because like I said, some people include certain details, and other people might not have those details. So you kind of have to go through all of it to get the full picture. But yeah, I mean, people are working really hard, but it's just sad that it even has to be this way. It's unbelievable to me that
it's 2024.
Just 2 days ago, the media was allowed to see exhibits from an August hearing. I mean, that's months ago now, and they had to stand there and draw a picture of these exhibits. Like, that it just shouldn't be that way. I can understand the crime scene photos being sealed because they're minors. I fully understand that. And I think everyone agrees that those crime scene photos should be sealed. Beyond that, I see no reason why all this stuff is kept secret. They're just going out of their way to make it as difficult as possible for people to get access to this.
Speaking, I want to go back to Angela because she said they filed a new motion, the defense, today. And it says the defense for Richard Allen and Delphi murders case wants to call former Carroll County prosecuting attorney Robert Ives. Allen's attorneys sent Ives a subpoena on Tuesday of this week requesting his testimony at trial. Ives is trying to quash the subpoena, meaning he does not want to testify. He states any information that he has would clearly be work product, which is something not discoverable. It says anything that he would have information about would be purely speculative, irrelevant, and admissible in the proceeding. We will let you know what the judge decides. So, interesting. The former prosecutor of that county doesn't want to testify. He's trying to stop the subpoena.
That's actually very interesting because I just so happened to watch a video with Mr. Ives last night. He's aware of the original investigation.
Yeah, he was the prosecuting attorney at the time.
Yes, he's fully aware of the original investigation. He knows a lot of details about it. He knows one thing he knows is that a lot of this stuff has been suppressed.
He knows about Holder.
Yeah, so
he knows about those 3 other suspects at the time.
Yeah, he knows everything. So I can understand why the defense would want to call him. That makes perfect sense. He's saying, it sounds like he's trying to get out of it. I'm sure he's looking out for his own personal interests in that. But what he's saying is anything he would have to say would reveal sources and methods of work product. So he's trying to get out of it that way. Yeah, that would be, Curious Luke said, watch Rob Ives' interviews. He knows what's up. Yeah, he knows a lot. He knows everything. So, I mean, he would be a good witness for them to call, but it sounds as if he would be a reluctant witness if he grants that motion. Of course, I doubt she'll grant it, but
There's another motion according to Matt Black, who you follow and communicate with, right? He's been posting a lot on the case, right?
yeah.
He posted some new documents, just tweeted out just a few minutes ago. I don't know what this is. Explain what this is. Delphi documents. Richard Allen comes now to court and having reviewed defendant Allen's motion for order on designated defense representatives, now grants said motion and authorized Max Baker to act as designated representative of the defense team. Who is Max Baker? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with that name.
We'll have to look that up. Max Baker. So
authorizes Max Baker to act as designated representative.
Can someone share who Max Baker is? And what's that about? That's new to me.
So it says, having reviewed the motion for order on designated defense representatives, now grant said motion, authorizes Max Baker to act as designated representative of the defense team during the course of the trial. Accordingly, Max Baker will be excluded as a potential defense witness. So they're saying he's a defense representative.
We'll have to look more into him. That's a new name in that I haven't heard of.
Yeah, one of the other orders that came out was Fran Gull's order, which banned those 4 journalists that we talked about before. She issued an order yesterday.
Cookie Crunch, thank you.
Just saying that the court was informed by members of the Carroll County Sheriff's Department that members of the media filmed and photographed the jury as their vehicles approached the entrance to the courthouse. An officer approached the reporter from NBC and personally reviewed the footage containing images of the jurors. The officer confiscated a Sony camcorder from Eric Arnold, NBC, a Nikon camera from Ryan Delaney, 2 cameras from Mike Conroy, Associated Press, and 2 cameras from Alex Martin, Gannett. The court had the memory cards removed to have the jurors' images erased. The court has banned the above-named individuals from the proceedings in this cause for their violation of the court's decorum order. So that order...
Send that to me in the chat.
Came out last night. Yesterday it was posted.
Well, but they were filming them on a public sidewalk, correct? Outside the courthouse.
Well, she's saying that they put their cameras up to the jury van.
Oh, they went onto the property and did the van. Or did they do it out on the street? Because the question, listen, Magnolia, I've already been
we don't know.
I've already been doing the research to this. I can't see how anyone could have their equipment confiscated if they're standing on a public road and they're filming.
Yeah.
On a sidewalk or road. I mean, I can't see how someone could illegally search their stuff and take drives and photos from their phone without a warrant when someone is on a public street. I don't care if it's a jury, a judge, president, whoever. Public place. You can film anywhere on a public street. You can film houses from a public street. It's not illegal.
Yeah. There was also another document that was posted, an order of the court. She's saying that on October 21st, the court returned the confiscated equipment to Scott R. Lease. Oh, these are the attorneys for Eric Arnold, Alex Martin, and Mike Conroy. The court will also return Ryan Delaney's property, but he has not retained counsel, so the court will have to make separate arrangements. So all these journalists had to get attorneys involved, and the equipment was returned through their attorneys.
Well, that's theft. That's theft. So my point is, if you're standing on a listen, if you don't want the jury's film, find another way to get them in there. But if they're coming in on a van, or the judge, or Richard Allen, if you're on a public street, you're fair game. You can film. It's not I don't see how that is jury tampering or anything like that. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Now, going up to juries and, going into a private place to film them, or questioning, going up to someone and questioning them and everything like that, yeah, that could be a problem. But filming, just strictly filming a van coming in and rolling into the courthouse,
yeah,
that's just my take. You might see it differently. I'm like, whoa. But, Indiana, they seem like to be doing their thing in Indiana, their own way.
Well, she claims that the officer approached the reporter from NBC and personally reviewed the footage that contained images of the jurors. So she's claiming that they specifically took pictures of the jury van. Not even the van. She's saying of the jurors.
See, I could see if you were on the property of the courthouse and did it, she might have jurisdictional grounds to do that. But if they're on the sidewalk or in the street and they're filming, because the opening of that fence, it opens, there's spots open, and actually the van pulls up to a side of a tent. But you can maybe partially see jurors getting out of the van or whatever. But if you're on a public street, I can't see how someone has jurisdiction to come over there and confiscate something while you're on a public street. And if you're on the property, that's a whole other argument. I mean, if you're standing on courthouse grounds, and do that, she does actually have jurisdiction over that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they say happened. So we'll see if any of these journalists or their attorneys decide to
sue
her or something. And these are not 2-bit media organizations. We're talking about NBC and the Associated Press.
And Gannett. Gannett is USA Today.
And Gannett. So these are, pretty formidable organizations. So I would hope that they will push back on this. One hope I have overall with this case and all the problems that we've been seeing, I really hope this case is almost like a landmark case that leads to a lot of change. With transparency in Indiana, because Indiana happens to have the reputation as a whole of being the least transparent judicial system in the country. That is their reputation overall in general. And specifically this case, I don't know anyone who would argue when I say this has been the least transparent case ever. I mean, I just think it is. And so I hope that we could see some sort of change come out of this. The fact that Fran Gull seems to have unfettered authority over everything, including confiscating cameras from NBC and the AP. I mean,
and banning them.
And how, right, there seems to be no checks whatsoever on her authority and her power. So hopefully all these things that we're seeing happening should lead to some sort of change in that state. Because this is just
too much.
It's just ridiculous. We're having to rely on hand-drawn pictures of exhibits, and it's just gone so far off the rails, and not allowing Richard Allen any lane whatsoever to present a defense. And it seems like every time the defense comes up with a way to present their case, they're shot down. So whether that be a bullet expert is shut down, they tried to shut down Todd Click from testifying, but I don't think that was successful. But it's like every time they try to do something, they shut it down. And they've got their hands tied behind their backs trying to defend their client. And, we see other cases where, the Sarah Boone case we talked about last night, in that case, the judge allowed her to present a defense. And most people agree that her defense team is doing a really good job for her. And they are. So I feel like other defendants should have that too.
Curious Luke 93X says, new judge order seconds ago denying defense request to bring the sketches back in after the jurors asked questions about the sketches. Do you know anything about that motion?
What was it now?
New Fran Gull order seconds ago denying defense request to bring the sketches back in after the jurors asked questions about the sketches.
Yeah, so the prosecution successfully got her to suppress the sketches last week when they said these witnesses were not able to ID Richard Allen. But then one of those witnesses, Betsy Blair, mentioned the sketches in her testimony. And so that prompted them to, and then apparently the jury also asked questions about the sketches. And so that prompted the defense to say, well, hey, since they brought it up in their own testimony, we should be allowed to bring these back in. And they did file a motion for that. But it sounds like she denied that as well.
Which is so, I mean, that's the basis of the search warrant.
Yeah.
Now you take that out, but then leave the search warrants. You know, the property that was seized, the search warrant stays.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Only in Indiana, folks. Only in Indiana. Anything else to add here? I'm looking to see if any new developments in this case. It seems like the court starts and then they have a break around like 11, a bathroom break. 15 minutes, and then the lunch at 1, and then another break about 3:30, and then court ends around 5:30, 6 o'clock each day. That seems like that's the pattern.
Yeah.
So they already had a break, but there's nobody, like, if I go on Twitter right now, no one is sharing anything about what happened in today's, change his height. Somebody said Richard Allen changed his height on his fishing license, according to testimony from this morning. What does that mean? Richard Allen changed his height on his fishing license, according to testimony from this morning. I don't know what that means, so I'll look. I'll have to, something about his fishing license. That's what people are saying.
Yeah.
I don't even know what he changed his height. Interesting there. Anything else to add, Magnolia?
No, like you said, they've only been in court for a couple hours so far this morning, and we are going to just keep checking for the updates. So there's probably a few mid-morning updates, and then have their lunch break. So we'll probably get a lot more information in the next couple hours.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, folks. All right, thanks, Magnolia. Great work as always.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. She's awesome. Magnolia is awesome. Magnolia is on it way on a different level than I am. You know, I'm trying to understand stuff as we go, just like all of you with this case. But train wreck, that is the title of the video. Do you agree or disagree with the train wreck assessment? Whether you think Allen is guilty or not, it just seems like the whole process and everything that has been transpiring with this case has been an absolute train wreck. You know, the trail, the train tracks, train wreck. That's my assessment. Definitely a train wreck. I still think Allen's guilty. I really do. I think he's guilty. But man, there's so much weird stuff in this case, and we'll see what happens. The derailment for sure. We'll see. We'll continue to monitor, and we'll stay on this each day. Maybe we'll come back at the end of the day and get our take on what transpired. But we're probably going to collect the notes of the others and then put it together and then give our assessment. So we'll be back tomorrow. We're covering the Sarah Boone case. Seems like there's been a development in that case itself, maybe a conflict of interest between her and attorneys. Maybe we were all talking about it yesterday on Sarah Boone about, is the attorneys being paid or not? And it looks like they have some sort of book deal or some sort of movie rights. And they're representing her, free in reference to have these rights. So that issue is going to be addressed. It might have even already been addressed. We're covering Sarah Boone. We plan to go to Sarah Boone's trial. We'll probably go at jury when they deliberate or at the time it's closing, maybe closing arguments. If we're in the area, but you never know where we're going to pop up because there's new stuff that pops up all over the place. but we want to go to Sarah Boone, and we might go back to Delphi in the back end of this, or even when the defense raises their, their presents their side. I was already looking at Delphi Hotel. There's no Airbnbs in Delphi. Delphi sucks. There's nothing really there. There's nothing really there. I was almost going to contact some of the businesses that have those storefronts right by the courthouse and say, hey, can I rent out your store, for a month or something like that, in the short term, can I just use access to one of your buildings, whatever. But there's like, the hotels are crazy prices once you get on the weekends, and then weekdays are pretty cheap. But man, like everything in Lafayette, Louisiana, which it seems like it's the closest city there. You can go to Monticello or Logansport, but the hotels there are very limited. Lafayette, it seems like where the city where the hotels are. But man, over the weekend, boom, they like go up 4 times the amount. Like you can get a decent hotel for about $100 a night, but on the weekends it's like almost $400 a night. It's crazy. So I'm like, that's crazy. Or you can rent out an Airbnb house or something like that, but then you're committed for the long run. So we want to go back. We want to go back. So maybe we will, we won't. It is also cold. I'm not a fan of the coldness, particularly sitting out there all night long. So kudos to all the brave people out there bearing the cold weather. Though the weather is supposed to get a little bit warmer, it's still cold in the 30s. And that sun goes down and it's fall, and you never know. One of those fronts might come through. Cold fronts. Unseasonably cool or cold, and we got November coming around, and the clocks are going back. It's going to get cold. It's going to get dark early. Darkness in Delphi, folks. All right, folks. JLR Investigates. Sub to the channel. Like, hit the notification button. Thank you, members. Thank you, subs. Thanks for spending the time with us. We cover true crime 24/7, 365. Where are you, OJ? I want to say hi to OJ. She was here and she came back and she vanished. OJ, come here. All right, no OJ. Sorry, folks. We'll talk soon. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, everyone. Be safe. Talk to you soon.